Today we have a very special guest. His name is Kyle Treadwell. He's been in the music industry for 10 years, and I'm not going to go super in depth on his story right now because I want him to tell it himself. So before we delved into his start, his origin story, Kyle, can you tell the people a little bit about what you do today?
Today, I actually do a lot more of like the editing stuff on like, actually more easier way to say that. Today, actually, I'm the creative director over at Way Better Studios, and we do a lot of editing for creators like yourself and like the Boakley brothers and Matt Bontrager and all them guys. So we do like their edits on their videos to make sure it's just, completed and all that kind of stuff. And then I own a clothing brand by the name of Stay Beautiful Clothing.
I love that. Okay, so you're doing some different things. I didn't. So you're part of the studio setup with like helping the editing and essentially the content creator side, helping those people, and also clothing. So what I wanted to kind of get into is how did you even start this process? Because you've seen success over the years, but what was the first moment of the step into the entrepreneur life? What was that?
Oh, I want to say the first moment that really hit me was so I was going into college, right? And I was talking to the dean or whatever, and I walked in there and I said, I really want to own a record label. And she said something along the lines of like, well, we don't really help that. I don't really think that's something that we could like, get you ready for. And then from that day on, I was like, it doesn't matter what you guys teach me. I'm still going to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was kind of the first like driving focus, but I've always like loved music and I've always loved what music can do for people. And I knew that what music had done for me over the years, I wanted to offer that for other people because like in various ways, music has really been there for me when other people haven't. So
Right. Okay, so I want to touch on two things real quick. You said this is something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize or people trying to get into it, but you said when you asked that question to your dean of the college or the university, they're like, no, we don't teach that. But then your first thought is, I'm going to do it anyways. A lot of people, when they hear no, they just stop. They're like, all right, that's all I can do.
right.
So I was super pumped that you said that because that's what a lot of people don't realize. Another thing is what I wanted to just ask is, what was like the first step into the music specifically? Like, what have you been doing for music, and is it still something that you're doing now, like a passion of yours? Or
So my first step into it was, I want to say, I started just like kind of messing with like, virtual DJ and like things like that growing up. And I was playing with all of the, like the audio stuff. And then I realized I just wasn't really that great at it. So, but I knew I still wanted to be in music. So when I got to college, I met this beautiful man by the name of Ellis Davis. You might know him better as Corey Ellis. But when I met him, I just listened to how talented he was, and he had the same passions, and a lot of our, visions lined up on what we wanted to achieve. So that was like my first big step into like being like, okay, we're going to take this serious and we're going to like actually figure it out. So I let him learn all the music and audio and all that stuff. Cause I originally went to college for audio engineering.
oh,
Yeah. So
I'm about to ask you some questions after.
so I spent 2 years as in the audio program, and then I got to my third year, and I remember walking into the class, and my teacher was like, "If you don't wake up every day thinking about frequencies and like all this kind of stuff, this isn't for you." And I literally got up and I go, "This isn't for me." And I went right to the dean or whoever the person was is in charge of like changing stuff, and just became a marketing student after that.
Gotcha. So why music in the first place? Why did you go that route?
Because I knew I wanted a place in music, but I thought engineering would be where I'd want to be because I loved the tech side of it and I loved how it was evolving digitally from like an analog format. But I didn't think that I didn't think that I was going to be the best at it, so I didn't want to continue down that route when I knew I could play a better position over here.
Gotcha. So there's never an intention of like I want to like create music, or was there?
So I definitely have records out. You can definitely find them. Don't look too hard though.
Okay, so let's say you're in college, you ask the dean, and then you're like, this is not for me. I want to start up my own studio or anything else in music. What was this transition out of that, like from moving from college to what you actually did?
So we spent like our years at college really learning the process, like learning how to properly get songs on iTunes, how to clear samples, how to properly release something, how to basically promote a show, get people to attend a show. Like that was the big like training moment, right? And then as we started to see some success, we just were like, okay, we could really actually do this. But the thing about Maine, because I'm originally from Maine, I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
But it's very dominated by, I would say, a certain culture without going one way or the other.
Sure.
But that culture was basically kind of letting okay, so for lack of a better term, like they would throw hip hop events at like these different places, but the second we try to go throw the same event just because Corey was a person of color, they would kind of be like, no, we don't want like that kind of,
Wow.
energy here. They thought that it would be more of like a, violence and that kind of stuff. And to an extent, I get it because it's Maine is a white people paradise as it is. So, but that was really eye-opening for me. So when I noticed that, I was like, you know what, let's just not focus on this place at all. So then we started to market and focus on the rest of the world.
Gotcha. Oh, so what did that look like? Like focusing on the rest of the world with music?
So I went completely digital with our marketing. I stopped posting any flyers. I stopped putting anything out in there. I started doing Facebook ads. I started running Instagram, YouTube, and at the time, I think it was, what was the one that died? Vine?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, okay. So
It was entertaining. Yeah.
Exactly. But we had some good strategies that were worked. And what I originally did, this was back maybe 2010, 2014, kind of that area. I started just putting his music in the background of memes and then posting them on his Facebook page. So basically it was like this meme page, but if you had the volume on and you liked one of his songs, you could either Shazam it or go look for it, or I'd post the like link in the comments down below. And we had one record that I remember doing that with, that I went to sleep and it had like 1,000 views. And then I woke up the next day and it was like 100,000. And then the next day it was like 200,000, 300,000. And I was like,
Whoa.
I'm onto something here.
Yeah.
So I felt like when I started to do that and understand that, I was like, okay, so all I have to do is drive traffic to these platforms. But keep in mind, this is like when Spotify like first started.
Okay. Yeah.
So like this was like again like 2012. So as I like begun to do that and start to realize that their algorithms basically focused on driving traffic to the platform, then I was like, okay, I can put a strategy together like this. And then we just did that until it didn't work.
Okay. So what I wanted to ask is, how did that directly lead to income, if it did? Because the big thing that a lot of influencers or new influencers think is that you instantly get views, you'll instantly get money. And
Right.
that's not the case at
No,
all. So
definitely
what
not.
did that look like?
So to put this in perspective for you guys, about 1 million streams on each platform like Spotify right now is like less than $4,000. So just think that you have to get 1 million eyes on you, or 1 million people to listen to your song,
Wow.
or I guess 100,000 people to listen 10 times or whatever, to get less than you could make on like, $20 an hour.
Right. So hearing that as someone new, because this isn't like a music podcast, it's like an entrepreneur podcast, but a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to make content. That
Right.
could be very discouraging to someone hearing like, I have to touch 1 million people to get $4,000. But the thing that you have to realize for the people listening is that there's different ways to monetize different audiences. So when you say the 1 million listeners or whatever viewers on Spotify leads to like the $4,000, is that like paid out from the platform?
Yes, that's paid out from the platform directly, but that's without capitalizing on the
Yes.
traction, right? You're not
Yes.
capitalizing, like that's just straight payout from the platform, right?
I didn't even know they paid that much. That's
Right.
pretty cool.
So now you have 1 million eyes on you, right?
Right.
Now you have to capture them and make them fans. So if you can get, 1,000, 2,000 people that really like love you, right? And you can get them to buy into your shows, t-shirts, whatever, you can make $100,000 a year selling $10 shirts
Right.
with 1,000 people. Or
Is that
not
why you
1,000
started
people.
your clothing brand?
So
to monetize that?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But it was definitely influenced
Gotcha.
because I just had all of this. I would say I had this traction and I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, I don't have any way to monetize this.
Yeah.
So
So what goes through your head when you get the first million listeners and you get like the $4,000 or so from the platforms? What's the first thought of like, I gotta capitalize on this? What did you do?
at 20 years old, I didn't think about it.
That makes sense.
I was like, oh, we're lit.
Yeah.
Like I ain't got to do anything else. Like
Yeah.
I could just flex this number all the time, and people are gonna be like, oh wow, these guys are dope. That's not how it works.
Right.
But again, young, I was trying to figure it out. We were all just trying to figure it out. So I was throwing, whatever at the wall, and whatever stuck, we stuck with.
Yeah.
So
And that's funny. I think the older I get every single year, it's like you mature in a way of like you just think so differently in business as you grow, and you start doing different things to actually monetize or make efficient use of the things that you're already doing. Because I know the exact feeling, like not with the social media at first, but with other things. Like I would work so hard, 20 years old, 21, and like, oh, like we got this result. But if I had the brain now, like the experience to go back, I would, like for you, I'm sure you would have found a way to monetize fast.
oh,
And, like,
absolutely.
so what was the first moment where you're like, what age and when you started to think and do something towards monetizing that audience better?
It was when I realized I was working like 12 hours a day at GameStop, and I was like, this is like all my money I'm spending on this like career and like pushing our needle forward, but I have to spend 12 hours of my day like at this job, and that's taking away from times that I could be doing other things that are moving the needle forward there and the music industry and all that kind of stuff. So it's like I have to find something to be able to make this dream work for itself. And that was the biggest thing, is like I didn't want to just spend every hour that I had trying to earn the money to chase my dream. So I kind of cut back on my hours there and was like, okay, so we weighed our options. We were like, we can throw more shows, we can release more music, we can start doing something completely different. And then what ended up happening is I took a passion of mine, because I used to just create playlists, right? Back in 2012, probably like the biggest thing I did was create playlists, but I had this massive network of playlists, right? So
When you say create playlists, do you mean create the music or like compile?
compiled.
Okay.
So I had a thought back in that time. I was like, this feature on Spotify is going to be very important in the future. And this was back before they had like a discovery section, all this kind of stuff. Like they just had the ability to create them. But I had this massive like playlist list. So I took that passion, and as they released more features that benefited that, we just drove traffic to these playlists and then put his music in the playlist.
Oh.
So it was basically like creating a bunch of different radio stations where his song has a chance of being played. And if they like it, they can save it and listen to it all the time.
Sure.
So that was the mindset behind that. And we were kind of like the first people to do that. And now it's like all the rage, and everybody does playlisting and they're botting everything. And it's a whole mess. But I don't know how deep you want to get into that, because I could really, reveal some secrets about the music industry.
Gotcha. And then we won't go into that. I think what I want to go into more is like how long ago was that, and were there any things after that where you were able to capture more monetization after just that, like creating a product or?
Oh, so what I did with that specifically, I forgot that's where I was going with that.
You're good.
Is I had all of these networks, and I was like, okay, I can charge people to do this. And then I just started listening to people's music and being like, if this is good, I'll put you on my playlist. And then you had to pay for submission, right? So that was like my first, introduction into monetizing off of doing something I loved.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So that's really smart, actually, especially if you're one of the first thoughts. But whenever you get some type of audience on social media, like you don't realize how much power you actually have.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people just want eyeballs, and they want eyeballs in the right audience. And I'm sure you had a specific audience, music listeners or whatever their audience was, that you can sell to other people. And I'm realizing this now as I'm gathering people for this podcast. There's people like flying in, and there's some big guests, like some big 7-figure earners, some like pro athletes, like actresses. Like there's some big people coming, and the only reason they'd come is because part of the pitch is, hey, like we get about like over 1 million views a month on like all the platforms. All your content's gonna be chopped up. You'll be a collaborator. You'll be seen by this specific audience. If you want this audience, let's do a podcast. And so
Right.
You don't think of how much power you really have as a creator. And that could be just a music, or that could be like actual like video, whatever it is that you do.
One of the biggest things I think most creators forget to do is like just a one sheet, a media kit. Like literally all you have to do is put together a one sheet to be like, okay, like this is what I can offer you. Like I have X amount of followers, I have X amount of reach, I have X amount of campaigns that I've done with certain people, and put that all in one place and then go pitch it to whoever you want to get brand deals with. Or in the music industry, go pitch it to clubs, pitch it to, whoever.
Yeah.
And be like, this is what we can do.
Right. I think it's funny because a lot of people and we call it media, the media business. Some people are really good at getting the attention. I think that's more of where you were at in terms of getting the eyeballs, getting the listeners, getting the ears. Some people are really good at just monetizing it, but not as good as the attention. That's kind of the boat that I'm in. It's like a lot of my content's very educational, and like I just want to talk what I want to talk about. I don't want to make. I used to make like silly dances and whatever, but I was like, I just want to like be me and just have it recorded. So pretty much all my calls and stuff are recorded in my life. But you, like, if you can find different people who have different skills, like for example, if you were really good at capturing eyeballs in the music industry,
Right.
and there you just knew a really good technician, a really good musician who could monetize really well, and it's like that would be the perfect collab. And you just you start to think of, you just have to start networking with the right people. So after the music stuff, where you started to do that, what was the next venture, or is this something that you wanted to continue doing and you still are doing?
So I did that up until I want to say the end of 2020.
Okay.
And that was like really when that started to kind of, take a toll on my mental health, because I realized that like people were calling me just to get things done. People were calling, like holding a relationship with me just because they wanted things from me. And that started to like really take a toll on me. And I was just like, you know what? These were like people that I thought I knew for 10 years. I thought we were like really close. I used to call just to, talk or whatever. And then the second I couldn't do something for them, my phone just stopped ringing. And then you realize that's how cold-blooded the music industry is. And it's more of a, what have you done for me lately industry.
Really?
And
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of messed up. But I took a year off to like really kind of sort out all of that. And this year, well, I guess 2022, I really started to like put together what I wanted to do. And that's when, Stay Beautiful came up. That's when working with Way Better came up. That's when all of that like started to, and then learning real estate stuff. Like this is really the growth of like who I'm going to be in the next 10 years. So that part of me is always going to be a part of my life.
Right.
You know what I mean? But now I'm trying to figure out what's next. And
Yeah.
how do I move from the music industry to what's next without isolating all the people that I gained from the music industry?
One thing I wanted to talk about before, like the future plans, what you're hoping for, is something you mentioned about like the people who you knew, maybe friends, maybe just people that you knew or were kind of close with. They started to just want stuff from you, and there was like the relationship kind of went away. Funny enough, I can't think of a moment that's happened on me, but my content's so different. It's very real estate related, educational, and I don't know, maybe I'm just blind when people are like trying to take advantage, but what did that even look like? Like how did that feel? I don't know exactly if you're willing to go
So
down.
imagine like talking to someone for like 5-10 years kind of thing, and then all of a sudden you're calling just to like check in, be like, hey, what's up? And they're like, blah blah blah, let me call you right back. And they never call you back. Or like every time that you'll text, it'll be like they won't text you back until they need something from you. And then that starts to add up over time, and as more and more people do it, because like I was just like getting out of like doing the playlisting stuff. So I was like, you know what? Let me just, try to do something different in the music industry while focusing more on my artist career and not on the growth of this playlisting business. So once I started to like ask for like anything back or like something to be like, hey, like, can you help me for once or something like that? Most of them just were like, no, bro, like this was a one-way thing. Like, I don't think it's hard. It's hard, really hard to explain. But like once you feel it and understand, you're like, wow, I can't believe that my entire life's felt like that.
Right. Interesting. So, I mean, out of the things that you've done in the past, are any of those things still things that you want to continue doing in terms of the ventures, the entrepreneurial ventures with music, or are you on a completely different path now with what you're trying to do in the future?
So I'm trying to build a completely different path right now, but I still work with like Beat Billionaire, he runs Billion Dollar Market over at Rock Nation. He's probably the only person that I still work with in the music industry, just because like him and I have truly become like family over the years. So he's probably the only one that I've continued to work with into this year. But I don't think unless a really crazy opportunity came up and the right people were involved that I would ever step back in.
Okay, so where are you at now? Where's your headspace at in terms of like the next year? What's the focus or the goal?
So I really want to like help, my goal is to help Way Better grow as well as build my personal brand and build Stay Beautiful as a whole. So that's been the focus. I've been trying to share more of my stories because I realized like I've done a lot of cool things, but I've never told anybody about them. You know what I mean? So I'm spending this year kind of like explaining like what I've done over the years or what some of my favorite things are, allowing my audience to actually connect to who I am, opposed to me just being like here's 3 things, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
No, I think that's smart. It's funny because a lot of people, when they're starting content, they're thinking, no one's going to listen to me. Why would this person? There's a lot of people who would love to listen to you because you have a specific story, a specific angle that they're either wanting or have thought about doing. And you just don't realize who's willing to watch you.
Right.
And that was the funniest thing, was that when I first started posting content in general, man, I got so much hate from like friends, family, because it sucks, it's talking and not confident on camera at all, shy. And I remember thinking at the beginning, hey, man, like I don't think anyone's going to watch me. And then I was like, I'm just going to stick with it. Just stick with it, see what happens. And over time, the audience builds and you get loyal followings, and then you get these messages out of nowhere like, dude, you've helped me so much. You've said these things, it's made me X amount of money. I'm like, whoa, this is getting a little cool. So yeah, I love that. I love that you're starting to post content. I started watching your stuff, and it's good quality. It's good quality stuff.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So right now, you said you mentioned 2 things with what you're trying to do now. You want to, attack the Way Better Studios, help that growth for the content creators, but you also want to go hard at the Stay Beautiful clothing. Now, is there a specific like goal in terms of trying to get Stay Beautiful, the clothing brand, up to a certain point, or is there more so I want to grow the Way Better more? Because what I found, honestly, dude, is when you're doing different things, it's really hard to commit focus to one thing, and that's something I've struggled with for a long time. So I was curious, is out of those 2 things, because those seems to be the most important, is there a goal to get Stay Beautiful at a certain point, income-wise or whatever it is, or is it go hard at building my brand and Way Better?
So let me explain it this way.
Yeah.
So the way that I look at it is like me during the day and me during like the, 10 to 6 or 10 to whatever hours, like that's all like Way Better time. But I also have the benefit of having Rossetti, right? So Stay Beautiful is a collective project for us. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we both were like, okay, like this is our passion project. This is one we want to build as a couple, as a dream, and what we want to do. So what we do is she does her real estate stuff during the day. I do my Way Better stuff during the day. But at night, we continue to build Stay Beautiful. So like that's the way that we balance that. So I would say both, honestly, because I think that I can do both.
I didn't realize you guys were partnering on that. So for the listeners who do not know, he's talking about his partner, his significant other. What I want to touch on, because I didn't realize that, how is that working with a significant other for an actual business? Because for me, I'm thinking about moving out with my girlfriend, and that is even like, oh man, you're just thinking like, how does that work, or how does that feel in terms of the risk versus reward?
it's scary.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to believe in they have to believe in it as much as you do. And she does. She thinks that this is a very great idea and it's something that we came up with together. So it is a passion project between us, but also, you know, we've lived together for years. We've, you know, have a very strong relationship. Like, I don't think I'd want to do it without her, kind of thing. Like, that's the way that it feels, is like, it doesn't feel right if she's not involved. Yeah. So I would say, to answer that easily, is everything's scary. Yeah. And you could lose any day.
Right.
But you might as well have the ability to potentially win with the person that you love the most. And when you can do that and build something great from there, then there's nothing that can stop you.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get some brownie points for that. We'll have to clip that into a TikTok, man. So what are the roles in that, in terms of your role and her role? Because the hardest part about joint ventures is just who's going to do what, because a lot of people have the same exact skill set, same exact thing, and they try to attack the same thing. So what's the role?
And that's the thing, is we have completely different skill sets. I'm so visual and I'm so like on the art side of things, where she's more like technical, like she loves spreadsheets, she loves all that kind of stuff. And I'm more like, let me design this, let me do the website, let me code all this kind of thing and do the marketing on that. So it's more of like split up on that side, where she's like kind of the technical side of it and the like business part of it. Yeah. And I'm more of like, I'll just make it look pretty.
So it seems like she's more of the operator mindset, and then you're more of the marketer, sales kind of person. Okay, that makes sense. I just heard a lot of partnerships out there with like there's all two marketers, which is pretty good, because in first you'll just get all these like customers leads,
right?
And then it's like, I don't want to deal with the offer, I don't want to sell, like actually fulfill the products or whatever it
exactly.
is. So okay, that makes sense. How long have you guys been actually doing that together?
I believe we launched it in September.
October of past year?
Yep.
Oh, cool. So yeah, so that's, what is it right now? Is it in a couple months?
Yeah. So I want to say it's about 4 months. We're in the fourth month.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Man.
So it's a pretty new project and we're excited about it, but you know, it's all part of the growth of it. Like, I didn't expect it to blow up overnight. I just wanted to keep it moving every single day.
Yeah. I'm really curious. Is there for anything you do right now, whether it's the Way Better, whether it's the Stay Beautiful, is there a specific timeline you have in mind in terms of, hey, if this doesn't work for a set amount of time, like this is probably not worth it in terms of this doesn't make enough income, or these things, all you're doing, this is the entire long-term vision, unless something drastically changes in life?
I think these are both the long-term visions, unless, you know, again, like you said, things change. But for me, Stay Beautiful is more than a clothing brand. It's more of like a mindset of almost just being like the opposite of toxic, right? Because like everyone loves to throw out like all these toxic stuff, and it's kind of like the trendy word right now of like being toxic and all that kind of stuff. And I just don't really like that. So like the way I looked at Stay Beautiful is always just remembering to be you. And I started saying it when I was little. Like, I wanted to say probably like 10 years old. But what it meant to me originally was like, just stay the person that you were when I met you, and the person that I fell in love with, and the person that I look at as a friend. You know what I mean? So stay that person.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. And I like how you kind of described it as, this is just part of you. It's like part of the identity, part of what the long-term vision is. Because people go wrong when they try to start something new, but they can't picture it long-term, or they aren't willing to commit. Because honestly, in business, man, unless you're already business savvy, which you only get really from going through it and all the hard stuff, if you don't have that savviness, often it takes so long, and if you're not willing to kind of navigate those tough times, it's really hard to stick with that stuff. So I love that that's your goal with that. I know you'll stick with it. What do you guys sell? Like, is it like shirts, hats?
So we have released 3 collections so far, and they've all been, we did the launch collection, which was basically just a couple designs. It was a crew neck that had just said "Stay Beautiful" and had this little book on it that had this flower coming out of it. It's sick. It's one of my favorite designs.
Okay,
I'm actually bringing it back here soon. But then we did a fall design that was more like based on like, you know, fall type stuff, like pumpkins and witches and all that kind of stuff. And then Rossetti designed our winter collection that's like super snowboardered out. Like, it's like, as we're both snowboarders, like our whole like idea was to create some gear for snowboarders there, and that's been doing really well. That's like our best of the 3 collections so far, but we have some really special ideas coming with this new year. So that was just to test the waters on those 3 to see which ones and which products worked. And then we're just going to be like, okay, these went crazy. These ones didn't really sell anything. Let's migrate away from these. Let's keep these ones running. And then we'll build into just like a drop collections of being like, here's the same like shirt, the same hoodie, different design for a different season, different collection.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
What I want to dive into, if it's cool with you, and I'm not going to ask you to like reveal any vendors or providers, but what's the first thought if someone's starting a clothing brand? Because I don't know someone out there starting. I'm trying to make hats for this podcast. Like this says you're wrong, so this might be a selfish question too.
It's all good.
What was the starting point of, okay, I want to do this. I want to make clothing. I want this brand or logo or whatever on it. Like, where do you even go to start?
So I started off on, and I should have said this way earlier today, but the biggest thing is I started off as a graphic designer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
so I just happened to have that skill set. Like I've been doing graphic design before anything else that I've done. Like graphic design has actually walked me through a lot of doors just because like no one else has the same skill set that I have in that realm. But with that being said, that was, 10 years ago where that was a like super awesome skill. Now you can just design something on Canva, or you could ask an AI to do it, or and that kind of stuff. Like the level that I feel like I'm not even needed anymore as a graphic designer. And that's crazy to feel like, because you could really just create all of this stuff on your own through these websites or programs. And it's not as easy. I mean, it's not as difficult to do as it once was.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, with AI, it's nuts, dude. I actually haven't used, I've seen it for the visual stuff. I've used AI mainly for the Chat GPT so far in terms of just getting information that I need. It's actually very useful.
It's so good. It's so good.
I use artificial intelligence kind of like it's like my Google Assistant.
I use it
it's
like my best friend.
It's so
like
funny.
I just ask a question like, what do you think, bro?
It's like, hey, I'm stupid. Can you tell me? Like,
Yeah.
And I tell it, like, act like a professional copywriter.
Right.
Act like a professional, whatever I'm looking for, and then give me the advice for this thing. So with the visual side of it, what does it actually do?
So there's some really cool ones out there like Writesonic,
Say that again?
Writesonic,
Okay.
where basically this one is like Chat GPT, but it's connected to the internet, and it can also create like AR artwork inside the chat prompt, right? So you could literally be like, write me a blog on this, and it'll be like, okay, boom, here's a blog, here's a picture that you needed to post with it. Like, it's nuts. So, and then there's like, like Midsummer, that's like AI visual and art and all that kind of stuff. But for like logos, I don't know if they've really done anything that's kind of doing logos. I think Canva's still at the top of the game of that right now.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was curious about because
But maybe. I guess if you prompted it right, it could do it, right?
Probably because I'm the one using. I had no experience in graphic design, but like I'm trying to make my podcast cover thumbnails like with Canva, and I get the the pro version. I'm like, I know AI can do this. Maybe not now, but like soon.
Right. Definitely will be able to.
So I'm like, okay, I could either get the VA, the virtual assistant in the Philippines or somewhere, or just maybe try AI. So
Right.
I love that, man. I love your story. Now, before we kind of get into the like your overall message, I have an idea of what you're going to want to say. Where can people find more about you? Or if they wanted to reach out to you or bring you something, where can they find you and what are you looking for? Like, this is your chance to plug.
So really it's just, yeah. Let's start that over. NovaWave Kyle on every platform. Literally, I don't think there's anything that I don't have that handle on. So as well as my book Stay Beautiful drops February 15th, which is my birthday. And then staybeautiful.stores where you can check out the clothing. And then anybody that wants to learn more about really like social media, AI, updates on like algorithms and things like that. That's really what my pages have become over the years, is like just kind of keeping you up to date on how you can best succeed on social media. So I'd say that's ideally the clientele and the followers that I'm looking for. But I also like to, post memes and, all that kind of stuff. So just have some fun while you're on the page. That's all I
Sweet.
ask.
And we'll make sure if you do want to reach out to Kyle anywhere, we'll have his links in the show notes below. But Kyle, before we hop off, I want you to give your just overall message. What message do you want to share to the world? It doesn't have to be business, it could be anything.
Stay beautiful.
There we go. You heard it here.